Everyone, I'm Alexandria Adams on our streaming news desk this morning, and we are talking about safety, keeping your children, your family safe. And this goes not just for those with families, but also educators out there. You can probably read the graphic below me where we're explaining what we're talking about today with the Better Business Bureau. They're sharing some really helpful tips for families and educators, especially being online more than ever now. A lot of the students now, they have the take-home laptops. Well, this could put them potentially at risk of being a target for a scam. So I want you to listen to the conversation I just had a few days ago with someone from the Better Business Bureau who is sharing what you should be talking about with your kids and the steps you can all be taking to stay safe.
Hey everyone, I'm Alexandria Adams with WSME4, and this morning I'm joined by Lorna Peters with the BBB, and we're talking about going back to school, a lot of people getting acclimated to some new changes in the classroom, and when it comes to online safety. So that's why we're talking to Lorna this morning. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of those safety tips that you guys are talking about, because I think more and more schools, really, I guess over the last 10 years or so, use laptops, and think they're having more access to computers than ever before.
They do. They not only have access to computers, but to their phones and to all kinds of other technology that were not available in the past. I know, like when I was in school. So we just want to make sure there's some safety precautions that we remind students and their parents about.
Yeah, so if you could break down some of those key steps that parents should be having those conversations with their kids.
First things first, we always suggest and strongly advise parents to educate their kids, right? It doesn't matter if they're in elementary or if they're in college, they still need a reminder on the importance of safety when using technology.
Yeah, how easy is it for a young person, a child, to access something maybe they shouldn't be on?
It's extremely easy, but to a certain point, it's the parents' fault, because there are certain softwares we can use, or there are things we can put in place, privacy settings on their phones or on their computers to avoid that from happening.
Can you share some of those steps that parents should be taking, some of those programs maybe that would help?
Yeah, first things first, on any technology that they have, if it's a phone or computer, there are settings. They can go into their settings feature and select privacy settings and figure out what settings they would like their kids to have. The great thing about technology, most of them have a way for us to protect ourselves. We just need to know how to use it. So parents go into the settings feature, figure out, with my kids specifically, I have one that's younger, one that's older. So the settings are a little different, right? But I have to go in on all of their technology and figure out, okay, this particular one is a teenager. What things do I not want him or her to see? And the younger one, who's in elementary, what things do I not want her to see? So I just always make sure the settings are correct depending on the age group that I'm working with. Depending on the age of the child, yes.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And even apps sometimes can lead to something that you weren't wanting your child to be a part of.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've noticed, when you go to a website now, there's a pop-up that comes up and says necessary or unnecessary info you want to provide. So usually if you go to any website, there's a particular box that will come up and ask you how much information do you want to provide this particular website. For kids, I would say none of the information. And depending on the age group, you may want to provide some additional information. But if you're on a website, a lot of times there's a pop-up box that will come up and it will ask, okay, are you okay if we gather some information from you on how you surf the internet? I always say no.
Yeah. And what kind of language should you be using, I guess, with your child? I'm sure it depends on their age.
This is a word I personally use with my kids: critical thinking. Always tell them, pause, research, verify. Pause, research, verify. I was driving with one of my kids the other day and I received a phone call and I answered it, and automatically I knew it was a scam, right? Using technology. And I hung up right away. And my child asked, why did you hang? And we had the opportunity to have a more detailed discussion on how to recognize if something's a scam. So every chance a parent gets in their everyday life, if they can just continue to educate their child, that's a key point I would share with with parents. Always educate. Every day there's an opportunity for you to educate your child on ways to avoid being scammed or on ways to avoid their personal information being stolen.
Even I just thought of this because I get these honestly weekly now. Those DMV, final notice, text messages, young drivers out there possibly receiving this and thinking, oh my goodness, I didn't do something I was supposed to do. And it's about to be a scam.
Yes. Well, let me share a story, personal story with you about that text message. My child just received his permit. He received that text message, I would say, the next day. He was freaking out. He was like, Mom, I received this text message. And I looked at him and I said, what do? We pause, research, verify. So let's go through a few questions. Why are you receiving this text message? What it's saying in the text message, does it really apply to you? And he's like, no. But if he did not consult with me or have that conversation with me, if he clicked on the link or called that number in the text message, what would happen? His information would be somewhere on the dark web.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess one other thing, what would you say are the key things that parents should be looking out for when it comes to talking to their children?
They should occasionally just ask their child to see their technology. I occasionally, it's never like every Wednesday or every Thursday, but occasionally, hey, let me see your phone. Let me see what apps you've downloaded. Let me see what settings you have for those apps. Just do those things. Some parents may want to do it daily, depending on the personality of the child, but just on various occasions do that and continue to have those discussions with your child. The next thing, many of our kids have computers that they bring home from the school, and some students in the past have received an email saying, hey, we need you to come to the office immediately, or we need you to click on this link immediately because it looks like we need to update your computer because something was downloaded incorrectly. And if they click on that link, it's a scam. So I always say again, pause, research, verify. If you receive an email from your school, more than likely the personality of the individual sending that email. Figure out, will they actually send this email that sounds like it's not them? Or if it's from the IT department, go to the front office and say, hey, I received this message. Should I click on it? But always pause, research, verify.
Can be just something so innocent and so quick, and then their personal information is out there.
Yes.
Great. Lorna, any other tips, tricks you want to share with us that parents should be looking out for with kids?
I would just all advise parents and students to visit bbb.org. If you think you've been scammed, report it to Scam Tracker. If we can help others not be scammed, let's do that. Let's support each other in our community. It's not easy. Dealing with kids and technology is also not easy. It's ever changing, but we can work together as a community to make sure not only our parents are safe, but our kids, our administrators, and our educators.